Okay. I'm just waiting for it. It's cycling. I'm sorry if I'm kind of cranky. The lack of sleep is killing me.
No problem.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sharon Saline. I probably look a little worse for the wear. Um, I'm happy to be here. We continue to have difficulty with our technology, and I'm very, very sorry about that. So I would love it if you could, let me trying to look for the chat here. I see polls, I see alerts, I don't see the chat. I see the chat over here. So if you're watching and you're live, please tell me your name and where you're from. I'd love to meet you. Hi, Stacy. So glad you're here. Thank you for dealing with this and my patient. Hi, Attitude. So glad you're here. And hi, Lissa. Nice to see you. So tell me your name and where you're from, and what aspect of reintegrating post-COVID is making you nervous. I would really like to hear that. Hi, Natalie. So let me know what's going on for you in COVID. Hi, Dana. Great to see you. Um, what is it about integrating post-COVID that's making you a little bit anxious? And I'm going to start by just talking a little bit about anxiety right now and how people are doing. So, of course, as life opens up and more people are getting vaccinated and kids are returning to school. Hi, Caroline from Germany. Welcome. We can it's natural that people are going to feel more nervous, so let's go through some of the things that will look different and how we can prepare ourselves to integrate more successfully. So the first thing is that we need to expect that things are going to look different. Some places are still wearing masks, some places you're not. Some places people may have plastic shields or mandatory distancing. School, and for sure, is going to be different than what kids expected, and it's different than what you expected. You may be entering your work building for the first time. You may struggle with, adapting to unknown or unfamiliar situations. Hi, Alex. I'm so glad you're here with Joaquin and you're in London. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Susan. Yay. Hi, Carlin. Hi, Harlan. I'm glad you're here this week. It's great to have all of you here. So let's go back to sort of these tips. So the first thing is to expect that things are going to look different. This will reduce your worry and help your kids reduce their worry. And when you expect that things are going to look different, you can make a plan for what to do in those situations. And the second thing is we're going to create a safety net. So it's good for you to understand what will happen as a fallback. If you get COVID, if you're exposed to someone who has COVID, if your kids are exposed to someone, what is your safety net and what are the plans? Make sure you have plenty of masks and sanitizers in case you still want to wear a mask outside, even if you don't have to legal by the government, but it might make you feel safer. Make sure that you go over these safety precautions with your kids and review the current facts about COVID. Now, for adults, we are re-entering into a social scene, and you probably have not been around a group of peers in quite a while. You may be worried about doing or saying something embarrassing or feeling insecure about starting conversations. So brainstorm some options with a close friend or a partner about what to say when you meet new people or seeing old friends. Talk about what to do if tricky situations, especially with friends who are less cautious about COVID, arise. And I encourage you to practice some of these conversations if necessary. One of the tips that I think is really important is to wonder about things instead of worry about them. We've been worried for so long, it's like second nature. How can we shift from worry to wonder? Explore your expectations, both positive and negative, about opening up. Um, And think about, what makes your anxiety worse and what will relieve it. And nurture curiosity. Ask yourself, can you actually say, I wonder instead of I'm worried? Shift your perspective to being curious and open about the future. And recall times in the past when you've been courageous and link those experiences to what's happening now. So let's see what's going on in the chat here. Susan says, I forget what life was like pre-2020. I hear you. It's a little weird to be outside. Today in Massachusetts, the governor said we don't have to wear a mask outside if we're 6 feet apart. And it was strange, just walking outside without my mask, although it felt terrific. But when I approached people, I actually have a puppy and a new puppy, and I'm walking the dog. And of course, everyone is interesting and to him. And so I needed to have a mask to put on because I don't know their situations and I'm still a little bit nervous. And this leads me to the next point, which is expect awkward moments and accept them. It's going to be strange seeing people. Like my friend asked me if I wanted a hug, and I had to pause. She's vaccinated, I'm vaccinated, and it was very odd. We did a hug. We kept our faces away, but it felt really nice to hug her. But we both felt awkward, and sometimes it's helpful to just state that you're feeling awkward and even make a joke. Let's see, we have a question from Alex. Any advice for people returning to in-person work? I'm a hairstylist by trade and I'm very anxious about returning to a high contact industry. Alex, I completely understand this. And one thing that I would suggest is I would really think about what is your level of comfort. If you're comfortable wearing a mask, then I encourage you to wear a mask because, even if you've been vaccinated, there are ways to contract COVID or a new strain of COVID. And you may feel better wearing a mask. And I'm sure your clients will understand that. So you sort of assess your level of comfort. Think about some statements that you can say to people to connect. How are things going? What are you doing these days? Are you able to work? Have you gotten a vaccine? Maybe say something positive about how they're dressed or how they look. For those people who struggle with some social anxiety, reintegrating back into society and seeing people can be, fearful, can be anxiety provoking. And so one of the things that can help us with our anxiety, if we have ways to reassure ourselves and we have tools to rely on. So coming up with some basic statements to connect. I was talking about this with a client of mine this week. Super nervous about seeing people and what to say, and we came up with a few things that she could say to people that she was comfortable with. So let's see, what are some concerns that you have about reintegrating either for yourself or for your kids? I know the focus of this is on adults, but if you have children and you have a question, please put it in the comment box. Okay, so here's another thing to think about, empathy. So this has been a very difficult time for all of us. And so I think we need to really acknowledge that instead of pretend that it was fine if it wasn't fine. Talk about what's been tough. Ask your person you're engaged with what's been going on, what's been tough, what's been okay, what's perhaps even gone well. We want to really start to unpack this traumatic experience because it has been traumatic for people in different ways, but all of us have experienced a cultural trauma. Camilla asks, I am returning to graduate school online only and struggled with prior attempts. This will be my third attempt and I'm trying to prepare myself for the extra load. Camilla, congratulations. I think that's brave. One thing that I've noticed for the adults I work with who have ADHD and who have gone to graduate school is they may not be able to be full-time students. Sometimes that's too much, particularly if it's online and it's asynchronous learning where you basically are supposed to watch a class on your own time. You're supposed to do the work on your own time. That can be very difficult for people who struggle with time management, organization, and planning. So I would encourage you to make a schedule for yourself of when you're going to do a class that's asynchronous. And so it's very, very clear. The second thing that I would really encourage you to do is to think about, can I do a full load? Maybe to get yourself started, if you can go part-time, you can kind of acclimate and get, really kind of build up your confidence about school, and then you could slowly increase your classes. Nicole asks, a lot has changed in my life this last year. ADHD diagnosis, my daughter and myself, marriage, separation, and stress in general. All of that can be hidden in Zoom. As I am preparing to be more with people um, who know our family, my no filter ADHD self is not sure how and what to share with people. I have bouts of panic before I go into these situations. I know they will be supportive, it's just scary. I don't want my kids to have to tell people I want to do it for them. Nicole, this is so thoughtful, and I really want to just reach out and give you a hug. So yes, it's sometimes it's hard for kids to say their parents have separated. Sometimes it's easy. This is a situation where I would practice what you want to say. One or two phrases that are your stock phrases, and that you can practice with a dear friend or practice in the mirror, so you know what to say. Because pulling it out of your back pocket is a lot easier than pulling it out of the atmosphere. So this way you can rely on something consistently, and that will kind of decrease your anxiety about doing it. Claire says, I've become very comfortable with not being around other people, and I'm not sure how I feel about being around people again. I get that, Claire, and that's actually my very next tip, which is start small. It's been a while since being out in the world. Instead of expecting yourself to go back, full, full tilt, full tilt boogie, or, be kind to yourself and start slowly. There's no right way to re-enter. What there is a pace that you need to establish for yourself. I think about the kind of social life I had before 2020, and it was boom, 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 something on Friday night, something on Saturday. I don't know if I can handle that anymore. My levels of sociability have shifted. And so I'm trying to be more conscious. Like, I know this weekend I have a family wedding, and I'm having dinner with a friend tonight, and my husband and her husband. That's it for the weekend. I'm not making any more plans. It's too much for me. And so there's a titration level. Some people need that more than others. So think about what you can handle, and maybe start with one social contact, a week, or one a weekend. Really pace yourself. Let's see. Susan says, I found out about ADHD during lockdown. Now I see life in a different way, still trying to figure things out. Yikes. You have helped, Dr. Saline. Thank you, Susan. I would really say to you, bravo for figuring this out, and take it slowly for yourself, okay? You don't have to, go back into the world in the way you were before. This is a great time to make some fundamental shifts about how you live your life and how you want to live your life. I don't want to live my life so frantic socially as before. I have limits. I need more space, and I'm trying to honor that. And I encourage you to think about what makes sense for you. Use your anxiety as a sign. If you are feeling anxious, that's a signal to you that you're in distress. How do you want to cope with that distress? Sometimes you might want to push yourself a little bit to really have the experience. And sometimes you might want to say, I already did something that was stressful this week. So right now I'm going to say no. Lynn, I have loved being in the house without pressures of the outside world. I hear you. Is this common with ADHD, or is it COVID-19? Lynn, I don't think it's common for ADHD or COVID. I think it's a personal thing. And I do think a lot of us have felt relief about not having to be, so crazy busy, as Ned Hallowell says, but to in his book, I think it's called Crazy Busy or something, but to actually give ourselves a little bit more breathing room and really to put things back in our life in a thoughtful way. So I'd love to hear from some of you, what things have you not been doing during COVID, and what things would you like to put back in your life? I'm really curious about that. Caroline says our seventh grader was home since December and will be going back for classes, on campus this week. He is really anxious to go back, seeing people, and would rather stay home. He's afraid if he can adjust with the hybrid system. He was fine with his Zoom classes and found a good way to organize himself, and now feels unsure. That's exactly right. So what's happened is, because COVID has lasted so long, we went from coping in a crisis to actually adapting and accommodating to the crisis. So it became our new rhythm, our new normal. And now we're shifting again, and that's going to take an adjustment period. And so we want to give our kids and ourselves some time to feel the awkwardness, to basically empathize with that, and to help them reassure themselves what is a way that something they're comfortable with, how can they pace themselves in this adjustment. um, Lynn says, I've always loved the solitude of being in the house without people, or I would rather come to my space. With no kids anymore, how do you start back without anxiety, and what to do? Well, that's a really great question, Lynn. And one of the things that I would recommend in terms of starting back would be walking with a friend. Super easy, low key, no pressure. It's often easier to chat if you're walking. Um, you're both doing something active. You can wear your mask or not. You can keep distance if there's a wide enough path, and you're just connecting. And that's a little less pressure than sitting at a cafe and having a coffee, which has a lot of people around, and also that face-to-face, direct and more intense kind of connection. Maybe doing a takeout and sitting at a park together and eating that meal. So really think about a little bit outside the box. Instead of thinking, I'm going to go back to what I was, think about, what am I comfortable with, and how do I want to do that? Alex says, I'm going to miss the gym. I miss going to the gym a lot. I'm also returning to on-campus classes this fall, which I'm excited about and a tiny bit nervous. Yes, so that nervousness is natural. It's normal. It's expected. And going back to the gym, that's really a big step. How is your gym, made adjustments for COVID? What are the adaptations that they've included? And how can you keep yourself safe, are all important questions. Susan said, I'm looking forward to hearing live music in person. Yeah, that's great, particularly outside, where you can space yourself from other people and hear the music. I'm looking forward to that too. Lynn asks, do people feel like they have lost connection with people in the outside world? That's a great question. I'd love to hear from you guys if you feel like you've lost connection with people in the outside world. I feel like I have, in a way. It's, just running into people. People haven't been out and about in town, going shopping, getting a pair of pants, all of these things that have been not necessities, are things that we will reintroduce. And it is odd. I find it odd to be in a crowd of people downtown, or like, whoa, where are all these people from? So I think I know that I feel like I've lost connection, and I wonder if other people have too. Dana, first time volunteering with special needs kids since last year. I'm excited, not concerned at all. Fantastic. I'd love to hear from you guys what you're excited about and not concerned about. And I think that's really important, because there is a lot of excitement. When I'm starting to see people more regularly, I'm going to this family wedding with my mask. Everyone has been vaccinated or tested, but I'm wearing my mask the whole time because that's my level of comfort. And we want to respect other people's level of comfort, as well as take care of ourselves. So let me continue with the tips that I have. So we talked about starting small. I think if you're unsure about what to talk about with people, there, of course, is always TV, Netflix or Hulu or whatever you've been watching, a movie that you've seen. That's an easy way to enter into a conversation because we've all watched a lot of shows over the past year. People are also feeling a lot more stress. It's been, over a year of COVID influenced living. And even though many people are getting vaccines, um, lots of questions remain about the safety related to COVID. I was speaking with a physician earlier today who said, I've been vaccinated now for almost 6 months. When, how long does it last? I haven't heard anything about that. So it's not like, it doesn't go away completely. Um, uh, so whether, it's indoor dining or socializing or returning to school, the process of opening back up, like any big changes, can bring about feelings of insecurity. So we don't, but the thing is that right now, given what we've all been through, we just don't have a lot of slack for additional issues. Our stress bucket, which is already filled to the brim, is now overflowing. So take some time each day to decompress. This is really important for adults with ADHD. Really figure out, what do you need to do each day to chill out. I've noticed that I actually need more time to decompress at the end of my day because I could spend 8 or 9 hours online or doing therapy, or I see some people in person. We do some walking therapy, but I'm much more tired now than I was a year ago. And so I need more time to just chill before I go to bed. Otherwise, I'm up at 2 a.m. So take some time each day to decompress and make a list of what works for you, whether it's a little meditation or watching a favorite show, having a cup of tea, calling a friend, maybe you do Sudoku or crosswords. Do something that's just for you at the end of the day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. So Lynn says, I got my second COVID Pfizer shot today and anxietied about it all week, what people have experienced. And Lynn also wants to know, what is walking therapy? So walking therapy is therapy outside while we're walking. And this has been something that I've been doing since we were allowed to leave our houses last spring. I had a couple clients who really couldn't use online very successfully and needed to meet in person. And so we took up walking around my neighborhood or around the block and doing our sessions that way. And that's been really interesting and quite useful to a lot of people, particularly teenagers or young adults with ADHD. They just love moving and talking. And I think that's something that I hope more people will start to do. Nikki says, decompress every day. Breath work is amazing. I agree. I think breath work is really great. So that's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about disrupted sleep. All of this uncertainty can affect your sleep. And I know when I'm stressed or overwhelmed, I wake up at 4 a.m. I hate it, but I do get a chance to read or do a relaxation app, reflect on what's going on, and be with myself. You may do this too. And of course, what can help with this pattern is to adjust your bedtime ritual, shut off screens an hour before going to sleep, do some light stretching, listen to quiet music, or take a bath. So you want to start slowing yourself down before you plop into bed exhausted. If you tend to be anxious before you go to bed and are worried, make a list of your worries and then you can look at them in the morning. I think that always helps. And if your sleep continues to be uneven, check with your doctor. So we have a bunch of activity here in the comments. Alex, I'm a big advocate for stretching as decompression. My anxiety lives in my shoulders. Yeah, mine too. So decompressing my body allows my mind to relax as well. Absolutely. Thanks, Lynn. Let's see. I just got back from walking on my lunch at work. Enjoy enjoy all the beauty around you, and you get fresh air. Yeah. Lynn also says her sleep's been interrupted every night at 3 a.m., I think you mean. So that's something, when I'm waking up consistently at 3 a.m., there are a couple things that I do. You might want to talk to a physician about taking some melatonin that can help reset. I also really try to work on that decompression, the stretching like Alex said, maybe taking a bath, what I need to do to slow down, reading when I get in bed. Now, some people don't like to read, they want to look at their phone. I would encourage a good old-fashioned book, or listening to a book can also be helpful. I know that Headspace, which is a meditation app, has sleep stories, and those can be really helpful to listen to and nod off to. Nikki says, I try to take my son out on hikes, bit of a battle to get out there, but as soon as we get past that, it becomes a place of connection and decompression. Yeah, it's like it's like getting out the door in the car and arriving can be really tough, but once you're there, they sort of let go and go along, and that can help. Camilla, Pfizer shots for me and my husband. He had fever, chills for a day or two. I just had aches and sore joints and was tired. Lots of water is supposed to help. I had Pfizer also. The first shot, I had some nausea and headache. The second, I was just really tired. So I slept. I read usually from 9 to 11 and then fall asleep. Okay. And then you wake up at 3, because that sounds really tough. So maybe I would get in bed a little bit later. Maybe your body isn't actually tired and you need a little less time in bed. Marianne, will this be available to watch after the event? Always, they're always available. And what was the name of that? Oh, it's called Headspace. It's an app, and it has meditations, and it also has sleep stories. Also, Insight Timer is a great app. They have lots of meditation teachers and different activities. These are both wonderful tools. Okay, so let's see. So I want to say something about persistent overwhelm. So we live on information overload. We switch from one thing to another, from one screen to another, and we don't really give our brains adequate time to shift and process. Multitasking is really a myth, and it contributes to this sense of being overwhelmed and overextended. With all of the constant stimulation in our lives, our stress hormones rise each time we make dinner, talk on the phone, and respond to texts simultaneously. And so what happens is that our brains, like we're overloaded. And during COVID, it's been worse, because usually, like, you have to remember your keys and your phone and your wallet. You go out and you do whatever your errands are. But we have to remember our mask. We have to remember our hand sanitizer. We can't simply leave our homes. We have to, remember our sunglasses, a hat, reusable bags, and the masks and the hand sanitizer and anything else. For a time, people were wearing gloves. So to reduce your overwhelm, make a conscious effort to do one, maybe 2 things at a time, but not 3 or 4. Like, don't eat, talk on the phone, and read the paper. That's one too many things. Okay. And I want to say something else about exhaustion. Let's face it, it's been exhausting. These 15 months have been exhausting. Worrying, changing daily routines, accommodating COVID updates, experiencing death and loss, job changes, food insecurity, housing insecurity, working from home, managing kids who are studying from home. It's been so very much. We have to give ourselves a big break in terms of reintegrating. You're going to be more easily fatigued by things you were able to do with not even thinking about it before. Like, maybe before you could spend 3 hours doing errands. Maybe now it's just only 2, and then you need to come home, sit in the yard, and, like, de-stress. It's a lot for us. Our brains are already stressed by processing all this information, and now we're changing again. And it's not that there's certainty now in what we're changing. There continues to be uncertainty. So if we also throw in depression, grief, and higher levels of anxiety, we've all faced numerous factors that lead to a kind of persistent weariness. I'm curious if you felt weary at all in this last year, or if you're feeling weary now, let me know. And this type of fatigue is what my grandmother used to say is deep in your bones, right? We need a respite. What is that respite going to be for you? Is it sitting in the sun on the weekend for an hour or two, or during the week at lunch? What are you going to give yourself permission to do that will refuel you so that you can slowly build up your tolerance for being outside? Make fewer plans, lower your expectations for what you should accomplish. I want to strongly encourage you to focus on what nourishes you and take the time you need, not just to recover, but to refuel. We have to refill our energy reserves before we start bouncing back. Um, so I'm curious, Lynn says she feels weary. What have you, how have you felt weary, and what are you doing to address that weariness? I'd really like to hear from you. If you have felt weary or tired, how are you coping with that? Maybe you felt sad or depressed. How have you been coping with that? I'd like to know, because I think other people who are on this Facebook Live would really love to hear from you about what coping tools you're doing to help yourself get through, deal with anxiety, deal with exhaustion, deal with disappointment. I know that for me, I walk outside. I've walked outside all winter long, which is something I'm not used to doing. But every day I made myself go out so I could just break up the screen routine. Also, in my life, we adopted a puppy 2 weeks ago, and I'll introduce you all at the end of our session. And while I'm completely exhausted because he wakes up every day at 6 a.m., which is not my preferred time. He's so sweet and loving, and I have company. I'm standing here with him sleeping at my feet, and that's really filled me up. So Lynn says, my husband continues to push me outdoors, and when I don't want that or I'm anxious about that, I've been picking up cross stitch and quilting. Good for you, Lynn, and good for you for standing up. Compromise with your husband. Say, I'll do this, but not that. I can go outside in this way, but I need recuperation time. Anybody else? What are you doing to feed yourself now as we're opening up? And how have you been addressing your worries? And what might help you? What worries are you having that I could possibly help you with as we are opening up? So I would really love to hear from you. What's going on? How have you been feeding yourself? And what are you troubled by or concerned about now or excited about? Susan says funny TV shows, new recipes to cook, walks with friends with masks. That sounds wonderful. Some of my clients and friends have become excellent cooks. They've decided that this was a time to try, recipes that they wouldn't normally try because they're too complicated, but they have the time and the space, and now they're cooking things that they really enjoy that they've never thought they could. Lynn says, feeding myself with food as I don't want to go from the house. Okay, that's great. Anybody else? What are you doing to nurture or nourish yourself? And what concerns do you have about opening up? The computer's been my friend. The computer has been a friend for many of us. It's how we've stayed connected. And we're so lucky to live in a time when we could, not that we are lucky to experience a pandemic, but lucky to be able to have this device as a way to connect. I feel blessed that I've gotten to know all of you. Harlan, my work schedule is getting a bit overwhelming with all the catch up that's happening. Right. So I would imagine that people who are going back to who are at work are experiencing some pressure about what they need to sort of up their game. And again, it's really important for you to be able to set limits. I know you want this tomorrow, but I can get this to you on Monday, so that you are negotiating that a little bit, because you are changing your rhythm, and I'm sure your boss is also changing their rhythm, and so I would really be open about that, if you can. Camilla, you're definitely connecting with friends online. Yeah, one of the cool things about COVID has been connecting with people in my life who I haven't seen in a long time. And I wonder if that's happened for anyone. Camilla started to have semi-regular dinners with two girlfriends. Fantastic. That's wonderful. So you're starting slowly, which is great. Again, we want to remember to pace ourselves in a way that makes sense. I'm curious if anyone is feeling anxious about actually going back to work. I know Alex said he's a hairstylist and he's going back to work. And if you are, what are some of your concerns? Erica, I have felt weary over this past year, being home with three kids, two of which have ADHD, and I also have ADHD. Wow, that's a lot to juggle. I feel that you have really helped me this past year with these Facebook Lives. Thank you so much. My husband knows when I need to decompress. I have been walking more and have started bullet journaling, which has transformed my life. I try to give myself a timeout when I feel overwhelmed with the kids. Erica, bravo. Those are all fantastic coping skills. I love bullet journaling. Um, I think that's great. I encourage people to do like a simple journal where they could write 3 or 4 things that happened in the day that went well. Sometimes you need to journal about something that didn't go well just to get it out. That's fine. But I think a lot of people with ADHD are intimidated by journaling because they have to write a lot. You can just write a little phrase, and that is definitely enough. And good for you for giving yourself a timeout when you need to decompress. I think that's really important to know when that is, even if you're just going to the bathroom, closing the door and washing your hands, or sitting on the floor and reading a magazine for 5 minutes. um, Camilla, I'm in manufacturing, so I've been working full-time the entire pandemic. Wow, that's a lot. So Camilla, you also reduced your workload on your job, stepped down from some tasks that were becoming overwhelming. So great. So you advocated for yourself and you stood up for what you needed. That's fantastic. Irene, I've been looking at lovely art on Pinterest, watching great TV, pretending I'm going to become a graphic artist. Fantastic. Buying a lovely notebook on Indigo clearance. I'm worried about the stress and uncertainty on my daughter, who is entering university and is going to live in the dorms. I am in Canada and most of us don't even have our first vax. I'm so sorry. We aren't there yet, so we are hoping that she will have class in person, but there is so much uncertainty. It is so hard to stand in uncertainty. We don't breathe when we stand in uncertainty. The ground feels like it's quicksand, and we've been standing in uncertainty, trying to balance on this shifting earth for a long time. And for kids who are moving into university, who are attending university or vocational school, there's a lot of not just uncertainty, but there's been a lot of loss. Maybe they didn't get to have a graduation last year. Maybe they haven't been able to have a senior year the way they hoped. And so, it's just very difficult to predict what will happen. So yes, it's great to cross your fingers, and I would think that by the fall, Canada will be vaccinated, and I have both my fingers crossed for you. Susan, you did 2 large art pieces in the lockdown that took months. Wow. High five. That's awesome. Harlan, actually, I just told someone, not right now, I'm watching Sharon. Ha ha. Thumbs up. That is great. So I think one of the things that's really important to deal with our reentry anxiety is to basically state our limits, not in an angry way or in a defensive way, but just like not yet, not right now, I need a little more time. Lynn said, I have a concern about animals that were adopted during COVID, and now people will be leaving them when they've been with the animals for this time. Now they are there on their own. Yeah, I have concerns about that too. A lot of people adopted pets, and I hope that they will continue to take good care of these animals. You're welcome, Irene. So speaking of pets, I would like to introduce you to my new pet, Milo. Milo, come here, baby. Come here. So this is my new puppy, Milo. Say hi. He is 9 weeks old. He's a golden retriever. We lost our 13-year-old golden retriever a year ago in early May, and it's taken me a year to get a dog because of COVID. He's very sweet, except for the 6 a.m. thing. So, on that note, I want to encourage you um, to to um, to really find something that feeds your heart. He's feeling my heart. And thank you guys. He is adorable. And I am blessed, except at 6 a.m. Let's see. Alex, I'm concerned about returning to full schedule and not having the time, energy to cook full meals like I have been in the past. That makes sense to me, Alex. And what I would encourage you to do is cook and freeze. I do that on the weekend. I cook a lot and then I have it for a few days in the week. And then on a day when I'm not working as long a day, I cook some more and I have that for a few days. I also make batches of soup or chili or beans, freeze those as well. And I generally, make a weekly kale salad because it lasts a long time. So try to make enough food for yourself that it can last several days, and you probably won't be able to eat as well just because you won't have the same amount of time. That's true, Lynn. Better than a flood on the floor. Can he go with you to the therapies? Actually, this week, so this is my first week back at work. I took the first week off, and he did come and meet some of my clients, some online, and one or two, he came with us for the walk, which was very interesting because we had to stop a lot. So thank you. Well, I want to say that it has been a privilege to be here today, and I want to thank you all for sharing the ups and downs of what's happening in your life right now. And that's part of why we have this community. So we're here for each other. Thanks for coming, and I will see you next week. And you would like me to post my list? Okay, I'll post my list. Or I'll give it to Annie and we'll post it on Attitude. Roz, just as the last comment, says, I'm also concerned about not having the energy to do anything like cleaning or exercising once I have to go back to the office. Roz, lower your expectations for yourself. It might be for 2 weeks that just going to the office is all you can do. And then you can maybe do some exercise on the weekends. Then maybe you can introduce it 1 day a week at a time. This is a transition period. Be kind to yourself, cut yourself slack. We can't do everything all the time. And I really want to encourage you to just take one step forward, because we've been living one very strange way for a very long time. And now we're shifting. So just pivot slowly. I know you can do it. Thank you so much. I'm glad you'll be back regularly on Fridays, Harlan. I've missed you. Thank you, everyone who came, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.